All right, folks, let me give y'all a quick update. Boy, I tell you, it's always something this year, it seems like. Anyways, so I'm trying to, this is actually working out pretty good because I'm trying to give y'all a real life experience here, and it don't get any more real life than this, let me tell you. So I've been looking for this buck. I've been keeping y'all posted since last night, and even this morning before I made it back over here to Maryland. And let me give you a rundown on what's going on. I mean, this sport that we all love, and people ask me why you do it this long, or, oh, you still bow hunting? I will always bow hunt till I can't crawl anymore, let me tell you that. And I'm going to tell you why. It's experiences like this is the reason why. As my buddy once told me one time, he said, you know what? Well, hunting and fishing both. He's like, boy, it's like the worst emotional roller coaster you could ever take. And it really is. So, anyways, let me tell you what went down. So I got right in here, and I went right to where I last saw them. Now I had that luminoc on there, so remember, out of the stand, I could see that sucker a long ways away. I'm talking 150, maybe even out to 200 yards away. And what it is, it's hard to tell how much arrow's sticking out. Now they wasn't waving completely up in the air, so I knew it was had fairly decent penetration. It definitely wasn't just a flesh wound or anything like that. And it stuck in them, and you didn't hear any crack at the sound of the impact. Which I'm gonna put all this, edit it, and get it all together later on for you guys to really see what's going on. But let me shorten this up because here's what's going down. So I looked all over and got right on them, found right where the blood was at, but it wasn't much blood at all. And I mean, that took my breath away because what I thought I did is I thought I sliced that femoral artery on the way in when he spun around. I really thought I saw him going down last night. Well, he wasn't going down. What he was doing was going over a steep hill. And when I say a steep hill, I'm talking super steep. If it was in Virginia, we'd call it a mountain. But basically, we're way down here in southern Maryland. And I mean, I'm way back deep in. It's one of my deep sets way back in here. And this sucker is probably, where he went, I guess he's a mile and a half back in. So let me tell you what's going on. I started doing my circles, didn't find anything, lost blood. Went over this with on the page multiple times. I've done this so many times, and every time it's literally right when I'm ready to give up. I'm like, you know what? I did circles at the 500 yards. He's not here. It's a real open spot. It's an open big old beach ridge, and I can see for a long ways. And I said, you know what? It just didn't, it's going to be, he's going to survive it. He didn't go down and never saw a bed or anything, which I was shocked by. I thought I'd come in here this morning, he'd be right dead over there 200 yards away, right where I last saw that luminoc. So anyway, so I got in here and just to shorten it up, and I'll get into more detail later on, but I went over, peeked over this hill. I said, you know what? There really only makes sense for one other way for him to go. And a lot of times where you'll find a last big spot of blood, that's where he makes his mind up that he's either going to go one direction, and he could go any direction when he does that. And I ain't got to tell you what direction they go most of the time, the last place you think to go. He turned around and went right back the opposite way, the way he was going. And long story short is I just peeked over the ridge here, and I was ready to give up. I'm looking. I said, well, let me just make sure I'm real thorough. Let me look at this. I walk down there. I see that sucker. Now, he's laying down there. I done left my bow up here on the hill because I've been walking all morning. All right, so as I was saying, it was looking bleak until I saw him bedded down there. Now, I'll go into detail a little more when I edit this out and make a full-on show out of it. Which, some of y'all know that I know there's a lot of new people to the page, but this is really a video series. For one thing, I really could care less about Facebook, but, that kind of has caught on as a secondary thing. I do all this as my intention was to have a video series. I have no idea where it's going to go from here. It may not go nowhere, but basically, for me, I just wanted to share it with other hunters who have, the similar interests like I do, which we all love to chase these suckers. And for all the people, the naysayers out there and everything, I had a buddy and he was just joking around. He's like, old man, don't you think it's time to go to that gun? And he always gives me heck on that. But this one's for you, bud. You know, as long as this sucker still works, and it always will. You even know that that's a bad shot. I'll be the first one to admit it. But it still did the job. I'm gonna stick with my bow till the bitter end, because that's what I love to do. It's what I've always done. Not against gun hunting. I still may pick up a gun here in years to come out there in Virginia. But when I'm over here in Southern Maryland chasing these deer like I grew up doing, that's what I'm gonna have in my hand. I don't never even have the desire to break out a gun over in Southern Maryland. It's just I've always bow hunted them, and that's what I prefer to do. And you know, there was a few people wrote in. You know, you always hear this is one thing with social media. You know, work on shot placement. You know this, and I know everybody means well, and so I'm not gonna really jump down anybody's throat. I know a lot of people, you know, maybe don't know the whole backstory on East Coast bucks, but let me just say this when it comes to shot placement, and this is a true story. There ain't 35 bucks hanging on my wall because I don't know anything about shot placement. Let me promise you that, bud. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'll put my shot placement up there with anybody. This was a result of that deer spinning. Anybody can have a bad shot. I don't care if you're the best shot in the world. And which I shoot my bow every day. I shoot older equipment because that's what I like to do. But I know how to shoot, put it that way, and I know where to shoot. And I think the proof's in the pudding, so to say. This whole thing about this story was to show that I don't care how many you've shot, whether it's the first one or it's the 1,000th deer that you've shot. That can happen to anybody. And so all these guys, you know, especially with social media, not so much on East Coast Bucks page, because all you guys are great. And I really do appreciate the following that we're starting to get, because that's what was my desire. We all obviously know a little bit about this, or we wouldn't be sitting here right now having this conversation. And what I wanted to say is, you know, all this stuff about all this hate that gets thrown out on social media, oh, it's a bad shot, and mechanical broadheads and all that. I'm all open for, you know, educated debate on this. This deer here was shot with a mechanical broadhead. And I'm gonna be the first one to tell you, I prefer fixed blades myself. And I actually just said this to somebody today on the page. You know, they said something about leaning back towards fixed blade. I've never been away from fixed blades. I've always been adamant about, I think fixed blades are a lot better. The only area I think they're not better in is arrow flight. And if you're shooting, you know, longer distances in late season, you know, some of those expandables just fly a little better for me anyways. And just get a flatter, tighter group out of them, out around 40 yards. They will do the job, but they definitely have their downfalls. Now, this one performed. It performed, and I'm also going to say this, and that's going to be the last thing I'll talk about on broadheads, because I'm really sick of hearing it. I'm sure everybody else is as well. A broadhead is no excuse for a poor shot. If this deer was shot with a 3-blade Muzzy, which is what I shoot with a fixed blade, I shoot them both. You know, I've talked about this lots of times on the page. I shoot them both, and probably the first 75% of deer I ever shot were all with fixed blades. I recently started, you know, fooling around with expandables, and I've had pretty good success, as you guys have seen. But I will tell you this, I believe that deer would die quicker. I think I'd have found him in his bed if that had been a fixed blade. Now, it still did the job, but I'm shooting it out of 70-pound Matthews, you know, and all this FOC stuff and all that. Still, same thing to me as going back to the broadheads. I could care less personally. We used to shoot them with aluminum, you know, arrows, which is obviously, you know, kind of along the same lines. But my point is, if you hit them right, to cut this off and leave it at that, if you hit them right, I don't care if you're shooting a 35-pound bow, as I killed my first deer with at 12 years old with a 35-pound bare bow at 15 yards away off the ground, and it went through that doe like it was melted butter. I mean, went clear through her. I hit it right behind the shoulder, through the heart. 35-pound bare bow, true story, first deer I ever shot, off the ground. It went through her like nothing and stuck in a tree. So all this stuff about arrow weights and broadheads and all that, forget all that.
There is some importance to it, but the basics are still what it's all about, which is you gotta hit them in the right spot. This wasn't fully my fault. I would have done things differently like we all would do in prior mistakes. But this is the real world. This is a real world hunting show, and you're gonna see stuff on this video series that you will not see on anything else. I promise you that. Appreciate everybody, and let's celebrate to the deer gods this nice Southern Maryland buck. And I'm gonna let y'all go, and I really appreciate all the support. Thank you.